Hey everyone, welcome to Jolt's Visual PKM. In today's video, I'm going to share with you my quick summary of Simple Marketing for Smart People by Broas and Tiago Forte. And on the back of this, I want to share two super interesting things with you. First, I want to show you how you can convert this book on a page into a blog post or academic paper using some Zettelkasten principles and Excalidraw Writing Machine. And second, I want to give you a quick update about where the visual thinking workshop is going because there are some big changes coming. But let's dive into the book first. If I were to summarize this book in 3 simple statements, my first statement would be to think of marketing as teaching. The second important thing to consider is to think about what your prospects need to believe in order to buy. And once you have these two things in your mind that you need to teach your prospects about the beliefs they need in order to make the purchase, then you can think of these different stages that you need to take your prospects through. You need to start with common ground. You need to meet where your customers are. And then first you need to build awareness. Then you need to provide input for consideration. And finally, you need to support their decision. So let's dive in to the summary. So it all starts from a common ground. And what Billy argues is that smart people who go into business for themselves need to do a better job of talking about what they do. And I have to say this is 100% true for me. Maybe not the smart part, but definitely that I need to do a better job at talking about what I do. But the thing is that when we think of marketing, all of these deceptions and gimmicks and all the nasty car salesman type of sales comes to mind, and that's a wrong mindset. You need to think of marketing as teaching, as educating people about the important things about your product. But of course, we're all busy people. I'm doing this as a side hustle and we have limited time. So the big question is if you have only 90 minutes per week to devote to marketing, what should you do? How do you spend that 90 minutes to get the biggest bang for your buck, the biggest return for your time invested? Now, Billy presents this argument or idea about the upstream downstream method or approach or thinking, where upstream is your core message. These are the central arguments for why someone should choose your product. These are the beliefs that the customers must hold in order to make a purchase. Then further downstream are the marketing channels. You can think of Facebook or Twitter or different type of ads, etc. And further downstream, you find the marketing tactics. These are all the gimmicks that people play, creating a sense of urgency to buy, etc. Billy's advocacy is that you should focus pretty much all of your effort upstream, and the rest will fall into place or even become unnecessary. Now, what's upstream? Well, he calls it beliefs building. And this is about this question of what does my prospect need to believe in order to buy? You need to create that belief. And once the belief is in place, the only logical solution is going to be to buy your product. And Tiago adds this realization that this journey can be mapped, and that's super good news. So it's not like these are random beliefs that people have, but these beliefs build on one another. And of course, if there's just even one belief that's missing, that is going to jeopardize your sale. But overall, you can map out the journey the customer needs to go through in order to develop that belief system, that understanding that's then going to lead to the purchase. And you can think of customers in these 4 categories, from customers in the center who are ready to buy. They're already your fans, they already know what you're talking about. If you're starting a business, you should target these people first. And then you have the outer layers in terms of distance from understanding. So you have the hot prospects who already understand what you're offering. They understand the problem, they understand your solution, but they need to understand that what you're offering is good value and it is the right time to buy that, and that your solution is going to be easy to use and you're trustworthy. Then your warm prospects are typically the customers of your competitors. And here you need to explain why your product is different, more suited to your customers' needs than those other products. And finally, you have the cold prospects, and there are 2 billion of them on the internet. These people don't even realize that they have a problem. They don't know about potential solutions. They don't know your topic. They don't know you. And the good news is that the journey that people need to go through can be achieved through beliefs building. It's an educational process. You need to create material that targets these different group of people with the right material. Now, of course, to deliver message, and I mentioned that earlier, that you need to start from common ground, or you need to meet the customer where they are. You need to identify your prospects' current beliefs, and you need to build on those. So there are 3 types of approaches that are mentioned in the book. First of all, you need to always listen for bad questions. Now, bad questions aren't bad per se. They're just not the right questions at the right time. For example, a bad question for visual thinking would be, how do I draw a beautiful whatever? How can I sketch nicer pictures? That's important, but I think the right question to ask is, how do I get the thoughts out of my head onto a paper so that I can spatially organize my ideas? I think that's the core question for visual thinking. And then as you go deeper and deeper into the subject, of course, eventually you will want to create aesthetically pleasing diagrams. The second question to ask is what and how questions. Billy says that why questions can come off judgmental. So you want to understand what your prospects are doing and how they're doing it, but you want to understand it in an open way that they actually share with you their ideas. And third, you want to peek into the cycles of your prospect's life. So this means that we are creatures of habit. Things don't just happen out of sheer luck or out of thin air. There's usually a clear pattern of what you go through to achieve the outcome that you're experiencing. And if that outcome is not good for you, then you need to think about that process of how you got there. And you need to help the customers change that process. So with this in mind and thinking of this chain of beliefs, let's look at the different type of content or different type of education you need to provide at different stages. So thinking about your cold prospects, well, you need to help them see their problem. You need to understand that they actually have a problem, and you need to explain the basics of the topic. Once that's in place, you can start to talk about the basics of potential solutions, and you can show how your product differs from other products. And once this is all covered, then you can explain your offer. And the offer is not just the price, it's the entire package of what you're offering in terms of your services, your knowledge, the relationship, of course, the price, but other conditions as well. And finally, you need to convince your customer that now is the right time to buy. And along the way, of course, your goal is to identify and fix the broken links, and you want to take your customer from where they are today until they have all the required beliefs where purchase is going to be automatic, the next logical choice. And you can think of this as this ladder with steps leading up to the purchase. You start at the common ground. First, you focus your material on awareness, and these are different type of materials you create for awareness, for consideration, and for decision. The content you create for awareness should evoke this feeling in your audience that, wow, this guy really gets me. Maybe this person can help me. When you look at consideration, then you should be thinking of materials that position your product as a viable solution and invalidates the alternatives. And your prospects should come away feeling that, okay, so these guys can help me too. And finally, when it comes to the decision, you want to reinforce your trustworthiness and that they're making the right decision. And along the way, you want to systematically identify these shared truths with your audience. And of course, your audience will come with wrong questions or questions that are not the right priorities. Think of my previous example in terms of people asking about how to create an illustration, this and that, instead of thinking about how do I get my ideas out of my head onto paper so I can organize them. You need to help your prospects ask the right questions, and when they have the right questions, then they're going to progress on this ladder. This is all great, but now as you think about the content you want to create, how do you create really compelling content? The point that Billy argues is that you should think of your content as you're explaining to a jury or to the judge, you're making your case to the judge. Every single content that you create should have some clear claims and arguments with proof supporting that claim. And this is where these three approaches come in. This actually comes from back ancient times, from Aristotle, from the Greeks. Aristotle in rhetoric, which is the art of persuasion, talks about ethos, pathos, and logos, or authority, emotions, and logic. These are the three types of proofs that you can use. Authority is about expert opinions, testimonials, data from research, third-party reviews, etc. Then pathos, or emotions, is about stories, images with symbolic value, vivid words that you're creating to evoke the right feelings you want in your audience. And finally, logic is logos that explains how your solution works and why it works. And as I was working through this book, I of course started to create some of my material. And let me show you just very quickly some of the things that I've been working on. I'd be super interested in your feedback about this, but also I just want to show you how I started to apply what I was reading here. So on my blog, let me switch to my blog. Reading this book gave me another push to restart my blog. I had a blog for many years and then I focused on developing Excalidraw, and now I restarted my blog. My first couple of articles look to make the case for visual thinking. So for example here, this article talks about what visual personal knowledge management is and why you should care. Or I've created a couple of illustrations here. So for example, I created this illustration here, which I think is an important aspect of visual thinking. Or my other visual here that I just wanted to share as some of the things that I created. Tiago mentions this in the book. He says that your life happens through communication, and I couldn't agree more with him. And I would say that thinking is also a form of communicating. It's communication with yourself or maybe also with others. And at the same time, a single visual can speak louder than 1,000 words. which means that if you master visual thinking, you will elevate your communication, your thinking, and overall your life. So you can judge for yourself if these materials actually properly apply authority, emotions, and logic and make a claim. I'm learning this process, and I believe in learning by doing. So this is my first attempt. Maybe one last point on this slide is how Billy argues that the trap most of the creators fall into is working on a topic-based approach. And I have to say that I'm one of those content creators. I have hundreds of YouTube videos and blog posts and lots of stuff. They're all topic-based. And now I'm going to move to a more argument-based, claim proof-based material. I believe it's more interesting for the audience, and it's definitely more helpful to my business, my personal targets. And Tiago provides this very simple recipe in the book in terms of how you can create messages, decide on the message, collect proof, and then flood your content with claims, proofs, sights, sounds, feelings, everything. So that's great, Jolt, you might say, but where do I go from here? Billy offers 5 steps that you should follow. First, understand who your audience is and understand what they already know. And also think about, is this the audience you want going forward? One of the points that Billy makes is by a topic-based approach, you attract freebie seekers, and they are maybe not the type of customers you want long-term. Second, think about your core message. That's what I've shown you, that I've started to put together a list of beliefs that people need to have in order to consider visual thinking. And I started to then move on to my third step here, creating new marketing material. I started to author new blog posts and new approach to my content that supports the core messages I want to get across. And then step 4 is to find opportunities for belief building. And it's not just marketing upfront, it's marketing when you're delivering your product to your customer. It's an ongoing process. And think of it, wouldn't it be much better if every time when you're consuming something, there would be a clear set of claims and arguments supporting it instead of just boring content? And finally, you can apply belief building to all the other marketing approaches that you've learned. So there's nothing wrong with creating maybe a sense of urgency to purchase or to offer a price reduction for a period of time. Those are good approaches, but they are not going to drive the right type of customers if you don't apply belief building. So the 5th step you can take is you can go back, revisit everything you've learned about marketing before, and apply belief building to those approaches. So that concludes my summary of simple marketing for smart people. Think of marketing as teaching people. Have this core question in mind. What does my prospect need to believe in order to buy? And lead them through these stages, these steps of belief building, starting from a common ground, from an agreement, through awareness, consideration, and decision. Now, let me step back a bit and show you what's behind the scenes. So first of all, I'm going to stop the presentation now. And I want to show you that these cards that you can see here are actually more than just visual. So if I click on a card right here, I can open the back of the note. So this is, each of these cards are a markdown document. And those of you who don't know, I'm using the Excalidraw plugin that I've built in Obsidian MD, which is a markdown editor. And here, each of these drawings are a separate file that actually have a note on the back. And in this case, my note on the back is my permanent note, or you could say Zettelkasten card. And each of these items, if I look at what's on the back of the note, I have a shortcut key for this to open the flip side of the image, and you can see here that I have all sorts of notes. I have my source, the part from the book, my highlights from the book, and then I have my own summary of the idea, and I can do this for each of the items here. So each of these are going to be working exactly the same way. I can open the back of the note and take a look at the ideas. So that's, I think, step one of how these visuals are different from just drawings. Now I can use these visuals in different canvases. So this is my book on a page summary, and this is sort of a condensed version with a limited set of cards. This view includes slightly more cards. So you can see here I have this whole part about do's and don'ts, and there are lots of do's and don'ts in the book, and I have those outlined here. And I have even more cards in my chapter summaries that I didn't even include here. But what I want to show you here is, let me just make the actual cards slightly less visible, and I want to guide your attention to the arrows. So with Excalidraw Writing Machine, what I can do is I can connect these visuals and text with a set of arrows. And if I do that, I create this storyline. And along the way, you can see that some places in the storyline, I'm going to be adding a bit of text as well, which is a connecting text. And when I have all of this ready, I need to select the first element in this chain of items. And once I've done that, this is going to be this chain of thought. So simple marketing for smart people will lead us to think of marketing as not as gimmicks, but as teaching, and then smart people, etc. So you saw the presentation. I won't take you through. You can see the sequence of the discussion I want to lead. And when I have selected the first item on this list, I can open the Obsidian command palette with Control P, and if I have the Excalidraw Writing Machine installed, I can select Excalidraw Writing Machine from the list, and it is going to generate this markdown document that you can see. Now, the markdown document includes each of the illustrations, and from the back of the note, I can specify which section I want to show from the back of the note in the markdown document. Now I've prepared this prompt for ChatGPT. You can pause the video and read the prompt here. And I'm going to just simply paste my generated markdown content here. And then when I press submit, GPT is going to work on it a little. It's going to generate an article using the text that I provided. So it's not making stuff up. It's going to include the images that I provided through the links, but it's going to just make those connections, because when I was creating the back of the note for each of these cards, I didn't really spend that much time wordsmithing it. It was just in the moment, quickly jot down a couple of ideas. That was my process. And when GPT is ready, I can paste it back into Obsidian. Of course, the links are now again going to point to the images. And you can see I've created this nice article that I can even publish to a PDF document with Obsidian's export to PDF functionality. And if you're interested in seeing all of this, what the result is, I'm going to include a link in the video description where you can download not this, but this book on a page summary. So this image in high resolution, as well as an Excalidraw file, but without the back of the note card. So these are just going to be images, and I'm going to include the PDF document that you can see. And in the PDF document, you'll be able to see what article GPT generated for me, and below that you're going to see my detailed notes on each of these cards, and hopefully that's going to give you an inspiration to try Excalidraw Writing Machine. By the way, I'm going to link Excalidraw Writing Machine also in the video description so that you can watch that video and then you can apply these tools and approaches to your own thinking problems. And finally, I want to give you a quick overview of where I'm going with the visual thinking workshop. This is my storyboard for the visual thinking workshop. I created 48 cards. These build on the mindset cards that I've shared earlier. And again, I'm going to include a link in the video description where you can learn more about the mindset and 4D thinking, etc. I don't want to bore you with that. What I'm thinking, and that's what I'd like to share with you, is I'm going to create this self-paced course that's going to take you through this book that I think is fundamental to visual thinking. This is The Extended Mind by Annie Murphy-Paul. So that is going to be the base of this course, that I'm going to lead you through the process of reading and illustrating Murphy-Paul's book and creating a visual book on a page summary and a storyline. And along the way, I'm going to teach you as much as you need to know in order to get through the course, but this is not going to be a detailed tool training. For that, there are other courses that you can take. And hopefully by the end of this journey, you will have a good, strong understanding of how it all works. And I'm going to be continuing with the visual thinking workshop cohorts, but the focus in the cohorts is going to shift to dialogue, to joint practice, to creating things together, talking about these processes, tools, and of course the book that we are reading, instead of talking about the how-to questions of how to get the basics working. I think this is going to lead to much more engaged visual thinking workshops where I already have a group of people who have a good understanding of the basics. It's going to be more fun for you, and hopefully with this combination we can build a strong community of visual thinkers and take this really to a next level. Now, I also want to highlight that the way I'm thinking about this is, of course, I'm going to be using Excalidraw and Obsidian for the course, and these are free tools, so that's not a big investment, you could say, apart from your time. I firmly believe that the concepts that I've created in the mindset are applicable in other tools as well. Yet I would also highlight that the reason for building the Excalidraw plugin in Obsidian was because I searched for 25 years for a tool that did what Excalidraw and Obsidian does, and I couldn't find one. I'm pretty much certain, 100% sure, that there is no other tool that supports this sort of thinking in the way Excalidraw and Obsidian does. So if you're using another tool, I do recommend still to take the course to experiment with Excalidraw and Obsidian. If you don't like it, you can go back to your old tool and apply these approaches there because they are transferable, but maybe you'll change your mind and you realize how good Excalidraw and Obsidian is and how powerful this integrated visual thinking approach is. This concludes my summary of simple marketing for smart people, and I hope you liked these 2 extra bits as well. Please check the links in the video description. I'm going to link to my new blog. I'm going to link to the downloadable book on a page for simple marketing for smart people. I'm going to link to the visual thinking workshop and lots of other good stuff. So please check those links, and in the comments below, let me know what you think about my book on a page summary, about my upcoming course, and just let me know overall, what do you think about visual thinking? What are the important beliefs in your mind that one must have in order to believe in visual thinking? And overall, I'm interested in whatever perspectives you want to share, so please use the comments below to give feedback and let's have a good dialogue. Thank you.